Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Let's start our video with a story in which our OP is enjoying a peaceful evening with their family on the front patio when they notice something strange. A young man is sneaking between a parked car and their fence, making off with bricks stacked nearby. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Entitled neighbor decided that my bricks actually belong to the city, so of course they could just take them. Some things are hard to fathom. Our house is on a downslope and the front patio sits below the street. Even though we live in a metro area, our streets do not have sidewalks, just the street and a dirt area between the road and our fence. This area between actually belongs to the city, but as is usual, the property owners are required to maintain it. Last summer, I just decided to give it a small makeover and had pulled up the bricks that had been framing the plant area and stacked them against the fence while I decided what exactly I was going to do. One evening during this time, my family and I were sitting around our fire table out on the front patio enjoying a nice evening. My sons and their SOs had driven over to visit us, and one had parked on the side of the road in front of our fence. We were all sitting around chatting and having a nice time. I was sitting facing the upslope and happened to notice the shape of someone walking by, but between the car and our fence. Now, that's not a big deal. I just dug up the plants that had been there, but it was a little weird because this is a little tight and there was more room on the street side. I didn't think much about it until I saw someone do it again. It's not a busy street, so there really was no need to go that way. I thought something was off because they had to deliberately make the choice to take a narrow path instead of the easier path, so I decided to see what was going on. I walked up the stairs and looked at the area between the car and the fence. I was stunned to see that almost all the bricks were gone. I looked down the street, and there's the young 20-something boy riding away on a bicycle with some of my bricks in his baskets. What the hell? I yelled at him, and he stopped and looked back. I walked over to him and asked him what was going on. Biker, EM, me. What are you doing with my bricks? EM, they were just sitting there, so I thought I'd take them. Keep in mind he had to park his bike and walk between the car and the fence to reach them, and 6 people were sitting 20 feet away, 3 facing his way. Me, those bricks belong to me. Why would you think you could just take them? That's stealing. EM, I'm not stealing. They were on land owned by the city. Technically true, and so they must be free to anyone. Me, no, that's not how it works. It may be city land, but I'm required to maintain it, and even if they were the city's, you'd still be stealing the bricks from them. EM, well, I was told differently, so I just decided I could have them. Me, stop trying to justify stealing. I need you to take these bricks on the bike back to where you got them and then go and get all the others you stole right now. This conversation was repeated many times as he kept defending his actions, and it took over 10 minutes to convince him that he had to return the bricks. He seemed so confused, looking at me with big sad eyes like they were just sitting there in front of your house, so of course they're not yours, so I can just take them. Why are you accusing me of stealing? For a minute, I felt like I kicked a puppy, then I snapped out of it and explained again to him exactly how the land use works, how it's wrong to take anything that doesn't belong to him, and once again demanded he return all of my bricks. I watched him take them off his bike, then ride down the block and gather the rest one load at a time and restack them in front of the fence. I was steaming. I've never in all my life, 60-plus years, come across a person so ignorant in how the world works. And I gather from what his roommates told him, there are more of them out there that think this way. By the way, turns out they're college students renting a house. I feel very sorry for their landlord and teachers. So if you park your car on the street, it's on land owned by the city and thus free to anyone? And our second story, how we removed an unofficial neighborhood playground. So my fiance and I recently bought a house, and along with it came a small plot of land where a 2-car garage once stood before it burned down a few years ago. Instead of rebuilding the garage, the previous owner decided to create a makeshift playground on the land for the neighborhood kids to use. Apparently, it became pretty popular with the local families. But since we don't have kids and don't plan on having any, the playground didn't hold much appeal for us. We really needed a garage, so not long after we moved in, we took down the playground with plans to rebuild the garage. That's when things got interesting. The neighborhood parents were not happy. Some of them yelled at us, claiming that we couldn't take down the playground because it had become a part of the neighborhood. One particularly upset neighbor even called the police, accusing us of destroying public property. The police told her what we already knew. It wasn't public property, it was our land, and we could do whatever we wanted with it. That didn't stop the complaints from some of the neighbors, though. We started getting a lot of dirty looks and passive-aggressive comments. Honestly, we had plenty of reasons for not wanting the playground there. I work long night shifts as a nurse, and I usually only get a few hours of sleep during the day. As much as it might make me sound like a monster, the last thing I wanted was kids screaming and playing in our yard while I was trying to sleep. There was also the issue of liability. If a kid got injured or, heaven forbid, something worse happened, we could be in a lot of trouble. The playground wasn't professionally built. It was a hodgepodge of old equipment the previous owner and some neighbors had cobbled together. Most of it was rusty and looked like a tetanus shot waiting to happen. It was an eyesore and a hazard. We knew we made the right call by taking it down, and eventually some of the neighbors came around. A few parents even admitted they were concerned about the safety of the playground, but hadn't said anything because their kids liked playing there. Now we're moving forward with our plans to build the garage. The plot of land will be put to good use, and we won't have to worry about kids getting hurt or disrupting my sleep. Some of the neighbors might still be upset, but at the end of the day, it's our property, and we're doing what's best for us. And who knows, maybe someday we'll host a neighborhood barbecue and show everyone we're not the bad guys. But for now, we're just focusing on building the garage and enjoying our new home. If the playground was so important to the neighborhood parents, they should have banded together to buy the side of the land. Or they should re-erect it in their yards. And our next story. Cookie neighbor objects to tree removal. I've got a neighbor who can be classified as 3 fries short of a Happy Meal. Yesterday was a very windy day in my neck of the woods, and a whole mess of branches came off trees, including a rather large limb from a rather large tree that's overhanging power lines on my street and could possibly fall onto someone's house. The damage from the limb falling showed that the huge tree was mostly hollow inside and had to come down, to the point where the town actually brought out a tree person, arborist, the same day, and he said the tree needed to come down immediately, and he wasn't kidding when he said immediately. That night, a police officer knocked on every door on my street and let us know that our road would be blocked for part of the day to remove the tree, which was just awful, positively dreadful. I had to skip leg day. Sad. Anyway, this morning I heard large machinery doing its thing and figured I'd go be nosy and see what they were doing. By the time I'd made it out of my house, all the machinery sounds had stopped, and Cookie Neighbor was angrily gesticulating at the tree service, shaking his head and making quite the scene. The tree service people kind of just backed away, and one dude got on a cell phone. Crazy guy nodded and then actually went over and hugged the tree, just stood there with his arms around part of the base. The tree was huge. Being the nosy person I am, and since nobody was doing anything dangerous, I kind of moseyed over to where some of the guys were having a smoke break and asked what was going on. Apparently, Crazy Guy's rather attached to the tree and says that it's on his property and they can't have it. Started spouting off sovereign citizen nonsense that they can't come onto his property and take his stuff, which would normally be true, except the tree was enough of a hazard to his own house, as well as his neighbors, that even my notoriously arthritic town moved quickly to get rid of the thing. Oh, huge pothole in the street? We'll get it sorted out in 3 months. I sympathized with the guy for a minute and then pointed out it's not actually Crazy Neighbor's property, it's his mom's, and his mom doesn't put up with his crap. Might not be the worst idea to knock on the door and make sure the lady knows what's going on. The looks on their faces amounted to, "Are you crapping me?" I just smirked and shrugged and moseyed back towards my house. One of the guys I'd been talking to went over to talk to the guy who'd made the call, and then the two of them walked up to the house and knocked on the door. And Crazy Neighbor promptly unhugged the tree and started to protest, right up until his mom, who's a lovely old lady, opened the door with a smile and presumably asked what's going on. And then she just looked pissed and started shouting at Crazy Guy. Right as she hit her stride, sirens could be heard rapidly approaching, and 2 police SUVs rolled up to the other side of the tree removal roadblock. 2 police officers approached the pair and just stood there watching what must have been a truly epic come to Jesus based on the facial expressions I could see. And then the old lady just pointed at the cop sternly and spat something, followed by Crazy Guy hanging his head and being taken away by the cops. Then the machinery started back up and the tree came down, which was really cool to watch. Shame about leg day. Sounds like it's safe to say dude's cheese done slid off his cracker. And our last story. Someone is claiming part of my property isn't mine. My beloved home, where I've lived for 8 years, sits on a lovely, large lot that's always given me a sense of space and privacy from my neighbors. It was one of the biggest selling points when I bought the property, the sheer expanse of land that I was told was entirely mine. I put my heart into this place, truly, and I love every inch of it. But today my sense of peace was shattered. My neighbor, who's lived in the area longer than I've been alive, caught someone taking photos of the little strip of trees between my property and his. When he questioned the man, he was told that the photos were for the buyer of the property between our houses. That's when it hit me. What I thought was one large lot might actually be 2 lots, and I may not own all the land I thought I did. The news was a punch to the gut. When I looked online, I saw it for myself, 2 lots, one of which was still listed under the name of the man who sold me my house. My heart sank. I'd fenced in the land, built a shed on it, and even my driveway overlapped with this strip they now claimed wasn't mine. The thought of losing my little grove of trees, my privacy, and part of the home I'd worked so hard to maintain made me absolutely sick. Update. For half the day, I was paralyzed by the overwhelming sense of loss. I felt heartbroken, unable to think straight, but eventually I gathered my strength and reached out to friends and co-workers for help. One of them, who'd dealt with a similar issue, enthusiastically referred me to the attorney who'd helped them. I called him, and within an hour, he'd returned to my call, and we set up a meeting for Monday. After I explained my situation, he assured me this was an issue he was very familiar with and had handled many times before. His confidence gave me a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, I could save my beloved trees. Update number 2. I now officially have an attorney on my side. It feels so good to have someone who understands the legal aspects of this nightmare and is ready to fight for me. I was warned that the process would be slow, but having representation feels like a huge step forward. I'm prepared for the long haul, but it's reassuring to know that I'm not facing this alone. I'll update again when there's more to share. Final update. The lot's mine. After a ton of back and forth, I offered the new owners a deal, $10,000 for the lot, which was the sale price they'd listed on their deed. My attorney was confident we'd win in court, but the cost would likely have exceeded $10,000, and it could have dragged on for ages. The new owners agreed to the offer, and my attorney handled everything: deed, handoff, payment, registration. It's a relief beyond words to have this resolved. Sure, it's irksome that I had to pay for the land, especially when I was led to believe it was already mine. But in the end, I paid a fraction of what other empty lots in my neighborhood are worth. Now I don't have to wait in limbo, stressed and worried about losing what I love. The land is officially mine, and I'm planning to plant more trees on it to celebrate. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.